this meditation, you can sit upright, relax yourselves, and when you're ready, you can close your eyes. It's good to have a determination before the practice. So gently and quietly in our mind, let us tell ourselves for the next 10 minutes or so, let us put aside all the thoughts we have related to the past and the future, for we shall devote the time to honor the Buddha's teachings and to express our gratitude to this human rebirth in a time when the Buddha dispensation is still thriving and accessible. For we shall devote the time to the practice of the Dhamma. Let us begin by relaxing our body systematically, starting from the top of the head. Let us just feel the sensation on the skin of the scalp. Perhaps we can notice the tone, the texture, the temperature, even a little bit of the slight vibrations. Feel the skin at the scalp, around the skull, flowing down to the forehead. Using the mind to feel, just like how the mind can feel an itch, any parts of the body, a pain at any part of the body, and a temperature at any part of the body. So shall the mind be mindful of the sensations at any part of the body, such as our forehead, our temples, and the back of our head. Particularly, let us pay attention to the flowing feeling, the flowing, the softness, the easing of tension on our faces, around the eyes, allowing the muscles to release all their tensions as if they're melting around the eyes, on our cheeks, at our jaws, feeling the muscles melting and flowing down to the back of our head, down to our necks, around our spine of the neck, such that the cervical spine recoils into its natural, slightly curved position, the most natural the body can offer. Such is the position of the neck. Allowing the muscles to flow and melt away, draping in themselves like cloth at our shoulders, resting on our shoulders, down to our arms at the sides, such that the arms hang at the side by their own weights. Allowing the arms to rest at the side as the muscle flow down to the elbows and the forearms and the wrists, melting and flowing down to our hands, as if the muscles are dripping off our fingertips, the whole weight of each arm gravitating, relaxing, nonchalant, rested, tranquil. And on our chest, the muscles flow as well, downwards, and the back, releasing all the tension, the constriction, allowing the rib cage and the lungs beneath the ribs to expand and relax naturally on its own terms by way of natural reflex of breathing without a controller, without anyone participating, just naturally breathing. And feeling the muscles at our abdomen, soft and gentle, flowing down at our backs as well. And all the organs in the abdomen stacked, one on top of the other, like pillows and cushions in a cabinet, rested, silent, peaceful. Gravitating to the center of our body's gravity, the base of the abdomen. Feeling the muscles around the pelvis, soft, flowing, rested, down to our thighs, our knees, our calves, our ankles, the feet, feeling all the muscles flowing and melting away, all the way to the floor, exposing the skeleton. The greyish, whitish set of skeletons, the skulls, the bones, the rib cage. For beneath all pretenses, personas, the clothing, the skin, the muscles, all of us are but skeletons, seated in a shrine hall devoted to the Buddha's teachings. The fact that we are here is a miracle. Miracles of lives and lives of wholesomeness, of good karma, of good thoughts, of faith, of wisdom, such that this set of skeleton is here in front of the triple gem, nourished, peaceful, full of hope and nearness to the end of dukkha. Keep the skeleton on the mind, respectfully, for the skeleton is a teaching of the Buddha. Perceiving the skeleton continuously, the mind can become really peaceful and bright and clear and full of penetrative understanding. into the nature of life. Gently, at our own time, we may open our eyes. So Dhammanussati is the practice of meditation using the quality of the Dhamma as the object of the meditation. Just like if you practice meditation on the breath, we have the breath in mind, and the mind hold the breath respectfully, as if the breath connects us with the Buddha himself, And then the mind is very mindful, trusting, and then the mind concentrates on the breath until the in and out breath become really, really peaceful and subtle. And then the mind unites with the breath. By the time it's very bright and clear, right? That is mindfulness on the breath. So similarly, mindfulness on the Dhamma is like that. But instead of the breath, it is the unspeakable beauty and awe and depth, profundity of the Dhamma. So like maybe you might have experienced maybe listening to Ajahn Brahm's talks or Mingyur Rinpoche's talks, or some other teacher's talks. Then we feel really inspired and we really like that way it was spoken, and that was the Buddha's teachings. And for the few hours, our mind is very peaceful, very bright, and we keep contemplating on the talk. So it is as if our mind has both the content of the talk and also the admiration of the talk. But what do we admire about the talk? It is that profundity, the beauty, the art. It's like appreciating a piece of abstract art, And you can be there in wonder and then just sit there. And then you forget to eat, forget to sleep. That is Dhammanussati. You're not mindful on the content, but you're mindful on the wonder of the Dhamma. Okay, so that's it. But I will explain a bit more in detail. So Dhammanussati is very simple. We have experienced it all the time, It's just that you stay there for an hour, that is Dhammanussati, But let us explain in the context of the Triple Gem so that we can connect. So we take refuge in the Triple Gem like what we did just now. And where did it came from in terms of the scriptural source? It was one of Buddha's relative, I think it's the cousin, Mahanama, who asked the Buddha, how is one a follower? Then the Buddha said, if one have gone for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, one is a lay follower. Okay, so to be a Buddhist is very simple. You have taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Okay? So there is no eligibility criteria. Okay, you must be of a certain citizenship or certain ethnicities, literacy level, or what? No. As long as you've gone for refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So can a killer, a murderer be a lay follower? Can, if he has gone for refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. If a person have lied, can he be a Buddha's disciple? Can, if he's gone for refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So basically, this is it. As long as we've taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. But what does it mean as a refuge? So refuge is emotional. If you have ever felt fear, lost, confused, you will know you need perhaps your mother, or as a child, you're in a shopping mall and then you're suddenly lost. Suddenly there's a big giant man asking you, don't touch, scared. Then you see your mother, you run to your mother and cling onto her dress. So your mom is your refuge. So the person who has gone for refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha is somebody who have suffered, who have felt fear, confusion, and then we look at the Buddha Dhamma and the Sangha. In our heart, we just know this is it. Then we take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. So refuge is emotional. And gone for refuge in the Triple Gem. What is the Triple Gem? And I've explained the last month about the Buddha. And then we know that the Buddha was a historical figure. But he is, although he's a historical figure, but through his Nibbana, there was an understanding that it didn't come from nothing. There was aeons and aeons, many, many years of perfection of a character that has deep compassion in its nature. Because of compassion, perfecting the generosity, the truthfulness, the equanimity, the metta, the renunciation, the wisdom, the patience, and so on. This being was born in ancient India, and through apparent individual effort, know that 7 jhana, 8 jhana is not enlightenment. And the way leading to enlightenment is a simple middle way that until then nobody was teaching, except was found in musicians who know how to tune their lute, that the string cannot be too tight and cannot be too laxed. Otherwise you cannot play music. So through that, there was understanding that the way has to be middle, neither austere nor indulgent, neither energetic nor completely chill out, and neither eternalism nor nihilism. And it is through this deep understanding, deep practice of middle way, he realized the middle, the dependent origination, the truth, which is neither eternalism, nor nihilism. And then he was able to expound it. And all this not because of no cause, it's through so much. And then through the deep knowledge, he understands this is not the only world, and this is not your only life. And there's so many other worlds, so many other existences, And the Buddha quality is so profound that lay people cannot fully understand. So he is Bhagawa, he is fully accomplished. Bhagawa, he is an Arahant. He's Samma Sambuddha, he's Vichacharana Sampanno, Sugato, he's gone rightly, he understands the world perfectly, Logavitu, Anuttara Purisa Dhamma Sarati. He's, for people who wants to be tamed, he is the best mentor, right? And he is the teacher of gods and men. He's awakened, and then he's blessed. So we don't fully understand how great he is, but it is, as I said, this emotion that the Buddha is so awesome, so fortunate, so blessed, so pure, that we would there's no one more worthy of us devoting our faith on than the Buddha. So that was part of the taking of the refuge, trusting in the enlightenment of the Buddha, whom we don't fully understand even. So this is the Buddhanussati. But we take refuge in the Triple Gem. So today we shall explain the quality of the Dhamma that is also our refuge. Okay, so as I mentioned just now briefly, so that we don't hold ourselves in suspense, the object is the quality of the Dhamma. So keeping the quality of the Dhamma in mind, and we practice. But what is the Dhamma? The Dhamma, there is a mundane Dhamma and the supramundane Dhamma. The supramundane Dhamma is seldom discussed because all of us are lay people, okay? I mean, not just lay people, but, chances are all of us are worldlings, okay? That means not enlightened. The supramundane Dhamma is for enlightened beings. When you are an enlightened being, at least in the stream enterer, according to the scriptures, you are only then a trainee, okay? So the trainee, they have a different understanding of the Dhamma from the worldlings like us who are not yet a trainee, okay? So that is also the Dhamma, that's the supramundane Dhamma. But for the rest of us, Dhamma include all the teachings found in the Tipitaka. Tipitaka Sanzang is your Sutta Pitaka, all the scriptures, all the past PowerPoint slides, the PPT, the YouTubes, everything compiled into long discourses, middle discourses, short Samyutta, which is your collected discourses, and then discourses organized into numbers of subjects, Anguttara Nikaya, and then there are also a lot of very big, huge volume of miscellaneous discourses, including the Dhammapada, the Itivuttaka, and so on. So all these are the collections of the YouTube videos, the PowerPoint slides, and then the recordings. But of course, in those days, we don't have such technology. It is all recorded by Venerable Ananda, endorsed by the Arahant disciples during that time in the first council. So that is the Sutta Pitaka. And then there is a Vinaya Pitaka. Vinaya Pitaka is like the SOPs, the laws, the playbook as well. So the laws, the policies, how do you conduct yourself? Because the teaching is not an academic undertaking where, we find out what the teachers say and then we just learn by rote and everything must go back to the sutta. It's not like that. There has also been a set of practice. How do you conduct yourself in front of lay people, in front of other monks and nuns, and what are the things you don't do? Like, for example, no meals after noon, So, but why is that so? So, Vinaya, there are also many stories that explain. So, from the Vinaya, we learn how the Buddha deal with day-to-day challenges in order to get your food, get your, support, medications, your robes, and not just for Sangha, also for lay people, okay? So that is so the Dhamma is also in the day-to-day life, how the Buddha taught his disciples how to live. So that is also Dhamma. Of course, the Sutta Pitaka is very broad. I mean, too long for us to discuss, but there are many, many kinds of beings. Devas, Brahmas, Brahmins, humans, kings, poor people, wealthy people, all learn from the Buddha. How the Buddha taught them is all in the Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, and then the Abhidhamma. The Abhidhamma are the essential teachings of the Buddha. If you remove the historical context, the personalities, the place, the context, the conventions, the Buddha's teachings from a meditator's understanding is simply mind, material phenomenon, and the mind there is a awareness, as well as all the qualities of this awareness, and their causes. And the causes are, how does the mind occur? Because of the eye contact an external object, then the mind occurs in the eye, but also there's a mind occurs in the mind, in the heart base. And then how does it work? There has to be this subconscious mind triggered to go to where the eye is, and then the eye just capture it, there's eye consciousness, and then there is a receiving, there's a bit of doubting period where there's investigating, and then there's a determining, aha, and then there's a series of relishing. And during the relishing, there are certain qualities of the mind only people with sharp wisdom will detect. It's wholesome, it's unwholesome, there's faith, there's no faith, there's wisdom, there's no wisdom. So this is all captured in the Abhidhamma. So it talks about the causes, how contact give rise to all these things. But not just that. Where did this contact come from? It is the eye, the ear. Where did the eye and the ear come from? It is from this body before this moment. And this body before that moment came from the body before this moment. And this body before this moment came from the body before that, all the way to the mother's womb. And if you were to analyze, where did this come from? It came from a being from the past, because there is still that ignorance of something meaningful can be found in the world, in existence. So there is an attachment because of this ignorance. And because of this attachment, there is a career involved in sustaining this meaningful existence. And then there are a lot of karma as a result. So because of that, we are born as a human. And because of that, we have this eye, ear, nose, and everything. And because of that, we perceive this existence, which is resulted from the karma. And then we conceive with the mind. So there's a lot of imagination, and there are a lot of association, present imagination associated with past imagination, and so on. So the whole world is built like this. So that is all found in the Abhidhamma, okay? So it's just pure Dhamma from a meditator's view, and only the Buddha can teach it. So this is the Tipitaka, and this is the mundane Dhamma. So that is in the teachings. But the mundane Dhamma is not just in the teachings that you can read off the books, that you can search off the Google, or you can ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT only have scriptural sources, and only depends on how many, or the biases of majority of the people, then ChatGPT tell you this is scriptural. But the other aspect of the Dhamma is very, very important, which is the practice. Like when we keep precept, that is Dhamma as well. Like the moment when we wanted to say something that's not very true, we actually check ourselves and we rephrase a little bit. That is keeping of precepts. Like just now, when we're mindful on the body, the mind having the respect, feeling the sensations, that's a practice of observing material phenomenon. I just did not say that if you observe it, it's actually earth, water, fire, and wind. That is from the scripture. But if you remove the scriptural source, you feel the flesh, the clothing, the skin directly. Okay, that is the practice. So the practice, that is Dhamma. So some of you may enjoy Anapanasati, breath meditation. So when you practice breath meditation, you feel very peaceful. You can remember that, hey, this is the teaching of the Buddha, this is Dhamma, this practice. Breath meditation is so wonderful. This is Dhammanussati also. That means instead of mindfulness on the breath, it's mindfulness on the wonderfulness of the breath meditation. That is Dhammanussati. Okay? So similarly, if you practice deep concentration, you see all phenomena are just earth, water, fire, and wind. And it's not just earth, water, fire, and wind like that. When the mind is very, very deep everything is earth, water, fire, and wind in the form of tiny particles, arise and pass away moment to moment. And that is also a wonderful teaching of the Dhamma. It is a practice of rupa kammatthana, which is the mindfulness of material phenomenon. And then when you observe the mind occurs dependent on material phenomena, on the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. It depends on this material phenomena, and then the mind will just go wild. It's like a Pegasus flying through the sky, flesh traversing time, space, okay? So it's anywhere, anything, all at once, okay? It can go anywhere. So the mind is like that. So there's always an object, and then the mind hold the object with this consciousness. And the consciousness sometimes is wholesome, sometimes unwholesome, depends on the ingredients of this consciousness. Arise and pass away very, very quickly. So such is the nature of the mind, and that is also the Dhamma. And then when you think of vipassana on the mind, which is nama kammatthana, you feel it's so wonderful. And then the more you practice, the more you realize, yeah, the Buddha is so... To say that he's a genius is so wrong. He's enlightened, okay? So you can see this, and then when you start to see causation. How this mind was this because you heard a sound of that. So that triggered this, that object triggered this. But it's not just that, it's also your past association. So there's perception, there's association with past concepts, and then it sort of creates its own deepening of the concept and so on. At the same time, the wisdom deepens, okay? So that is moment-to-moment dependent origination. But ultimately, it is, if we look at samsara, human life of 100 years is just a snap of a finger. So there's so many of these snaps of fingers. This human life is almost nothing, okay? And then all these cause and condition, you look at it from the larger scheme of time, space, it is just dependent origination. Because of this, that arises. Because that happens. And when this subsides, that subsides. So the practice is almost like a miracle. How could anybody possibly teach this? Okay, so this is the mundane Dhamma. Then the supramundane Dhamma, according to the Abhidhamma, okay, when a being, the wisdom because of vipassana, mature, deepen, the wisdom becomes like suddenly you outgrow your previous state. You become suddenly mature stage by stage. Suddenly you feel actually everything is dangerous. Suddenly you feel there can only be insecurity. Suddenly you feel disenchanted. Suddenly you feel there's nothing really here. Then suddenly you feel equanimous. And then all this deepening. And then there is this suddenly that you see Nibbana. Okay? And then you stay in this observing of Nibbana, and you reflect on the path that leads to Nibbana. And then there are these 8 path factors, the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is a supramundane, 4 path knowledges and 4 fruition knowledges. The stream enterer, when the insight deepens, there is this experience of seeing Nibbana, and then reflecting back, there was a mind that actually consummate the Eightfold Path, and then realize Nibbana, and then emerge from it and realize that, and if he reviews, 3 of the defilements have been eradicated. Doubt to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and the teachings of dependent origination. And then you no longer believe in any other teachings that can lead to Nibbana except this, which is a Noble Eightfold Path. And then you no longer have this staunch belief in a self. Although you may still have this conventional idea of a self, but you no longer have this staunch belief in a self. Then you carry on practice because you're only just a trainee, and you continue with the vipassana, and then the wisdom by then is deeper even than the wisdom requires for the first path and fruit. And then you continue the same practice, but the wisdom is deeper, okay? And then you realize, again, similar experience, and then you look back, two other defilements, attachment to sensual pleasures and hatred are weakened, okay? And then you continue the same practice, and then this attachment to sensual pleasure and hatred or anger is completely eradicated. Same experience, third fruit. And then you continue the practice, the remaining 5 are eradicated. Of attachment to existence, of restlessness, of ignorance, I can't remember the other 2, sorry. Okay, so this is the 8th path and fruit. And then the 9th is Nibbana itself. So it's for those enlightened beings who have realized Nibbana. By then, Dhamma to them is deeper, it's different meaning, okay? And then if they were to do Dhammanussati, it will be reflecting on the experience and then just feeling the quality of the Dhamma, okay? I'll explain in the next slide. But for us, we are, mundane, so all this from Abhidhamma knowledge, okay? So this paragraph just describes the meditation on the Dhamma. The meditator's mind is enthused, inspired, light, soft, balanced, tranquil, detached, and yet accepting, clear, and full of faith, while being mindful on the quality of the Buddha's teachings. When the meditator continues like this, the hindrances are suppressed. That means aversion mind, attachment mind to sensual pleasures, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worries and doubt, all are suppressed temporarily. And the mind enters into nirjana. Nirjana, the mind, because the quality of Dhamma is so profound, the mind cannot be fully in samadhi, but still it is very bright and clear. For some people, this is good enough for seeing ultimate reality and realize Nibbana. So this is the explanation of the meditation. Now let's examine the quality of the Dhamma in details, and then I think I'll explain to 11:45, then we do meditation for 15 minutes until 12, okay? So the Dhamma is Swakato, Bhagavata Dhammo, Sanditiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Opanaiko, Pachattang Veditabo Vinuhiti. So imagine any Dhamma, such as here, I put here an image of Heart Sutra, okay, imagine it's Heart Sutra. It is well proclaimed by the Blessed One. Why is it? This phrase refers to all teachings in the scriptures as well as the noble teachings, the mundane and the supramundane teachings that I've just shared. And why is it called well proclaimed? Because it announces the life of purity that is utterly perfect and pure with meaning and with detail. Good in the beginning, good in the middle, and the end. So I've already explained here, it is good in the beginning because the Dhamma, if you were to look at all the teachings of the Buddha, it emphasizes virtues. Virtue is your life, your livelihood, your habits, your daily habits, okay? That is on the side of simplicity, on the side of non-violence, on the side of harmlessness, right? And then with that as a basis, the middle is concentration and insight, which is mindfulness on the breath, mindfulness on the body, such that the mind is very, very peaceful until the hindrances are suppressed. And then with the hindrances suppressed, the mind observes worldly phenomenon. And then we start to have insights, okay? And then the end, which is experience of Nibbana through the path and fruit that I explained just now based on the Abhidhamma. Sanditthiko, from here onwards, all this quality refers to the supramundane path and fruit. That means the experience of a person, conventional speaker, entering into the Sotapanna stream, the path and the fruit. So Sanditthiko, Akaliko, all this refers to that. So what is Sanditthiko? It is when one attains the noble path, it is visible to him through revealing knowledge. You no longer need to have faith. Because you experience it, you realize it is the Four Noble Truths. It is dukkha and samudaya. Because in order to realize Nibbana, you have to deeply understand dukkha and the cause. And when you realize Nibbana, the Third Noble Truth is apparent to you. And when you reflect, it is the Fourth Noble Truth that gives rise to the Third Noble Truth. So immediately visible here and now, it's very obvious that the Four Noble Truth is so obvious. No need faith. Akaliko means not delayed, no delay. Why? Because once you have experienced the path, like that, path and fruit. Once you experience the path, immediately comes the fruit. So once you experience the consummation of all the Eightfold Path, Nibbana becomes apparent to you. So this is timeless. That means this is akaliko, no delay. Inviting inspection, because the Dhamma that is found is pure. Only when the mind is at the right balance, then there is that Eightfold Path and Nibbana arising, and it's completely transparent, nothing to hide. The Buddha has already said, you just have to do this. Keep your precepts, whatever you've done before, never mind. You take precept again, your mind is pure, mindful on your breath, stay there, balance the mind, and then the mind is very bright. See your body, see the mind, explore the cause, see where did it come from, see that they are all impermanent, suffering, non-self, and then the wisdom arises, and then you realize Nibbana. So it is transparent, it is nothing to hide, okay? It is onward leading. Okay, onward leading, it is like taking an escalator down. You step on the escalator, the only way to go is down. Okay, so you step onto the stream, and then you will realize Nibbana. You arise the path, the fruit will happen. It will not be otherwise. So this is onward leading. Directly experienceable by the wise. So when the wise experience Nibbana, the mind sees it, and nobody else. His friend who's sitting next to him cannot share this enlightenment. Okay? And it's only for people with very sharp wisdom that they can practice like this, and then they can see. So it's not for fools. So all these are from the Visuddhimagga, okay? I mean, I would not be able to teach something like this. It's all from Visuddhimagga. I'm just parroting. So now, for our purpose, for intents and purposes, we are focusing on Swakato, because this is for lay people like us. But even this is very rich already. So let us examine deeply Swakato, well proclaimed. So later, when you practice Dhammanussati, you just have to say, this is well proclaimed, this is well taught, this is well explained, this is well proclaimed. Swakato, like that. So this well proclaimed, as I mentioned just now, it applies both to the mundane Dhamma in the scriptures as well as the supramundane Dhamma. So well proclaimed because the for the supramundane, the Dhamma leads to Nibbana, the path leads to Nibbana, and the Nibbana is connected with this path, so it's very well proclaimed. It's very coherent. Okay, but this is not for us, this is for the Sotapatti, at least, who have, the stream enterer who have experienced the path and the fruit. We look at the second one. The Dhamma is an announcement of a life of purity that is utterly perfect and pure. It's well proclaimed because it is announced by the Buddha of a life of purity and perfection, and has deep meaning, and also is in great detail. But what does it mean? So let's see what's the explanation from Visuddhimagga. The life of purity in the dispensation, that means all the disciples of the Buddha, all the beings are not just humans, as well as all the past beings who were disciples of the Buddha, as well as the path, which is a practice. The Buddha taught and shows in various ways it's pure. It is utterly perfect because there's nothing further we can add or to subtract. So later you can recall either your practice of Anapanasati or maybe the scripture that I'm going to share just later, that it is nothing to add, nothing more to add, okay? It is pure because it is not concerned with worldly things. It's with meaning and detail because the intention is profound and the words are clear. The intention is profound because when the Buddha teach any one of us, the idea is for us to make an end of dukkha. Okay? It's not just about having happiness, about managing our stress, or worse still, making money. It's not. The idea is to make an end of dukkha. And not just about feeling at peace when we die, or feeling at peace when we have aging. It's about making an end of dying altogether. So the meaning is very profound, and the word is very clear. If you look at the sutta, sometimes it's not very clear, but it is clear to the audience. When the Buddha teaches an audience, he can sense who is this person. Where does he come from? What are his hang-ups? What are his triggers? He can actually do that. So the word is very clear, and the meaning is profound. So this is why is it called, it is well proclaimed. Also, it is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Even a single stanza, because the Dhamma is altogether admirable. So, for example, one of my favorite, I don't know your favorite, so when we practice Dhamma, it is good to consider what is my favorite piece of Dhamma from the scriptures or from the teachings or anywhere. So one of my favorite is Bhaddikarata Gatha. Okay. Let not a person revive the past, or on the future build his hope. The past have been left behind, and the future has not been reached. Instead, with insight, let him see each presently a risen state. Let him know this and be sure of it, invincibly, unshakably. Today, death may come, who knows? No bargain with mortality can keep him and his horse away. But one who dwells thus ardently, relentlessly, by day, by night, it is he, the peaceful sage has said, who has had a single excellent night. So the Buddha taught this to the devas and to humans, and it is so good in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, because from here you can see samatha practice and you can see vipassana practice. I will not go on because I want to share a sutta. Okay, the sutta also with several meanings are very good, and then some of the suttas that you can see are very thara, like good in beginning because there's a place, origin of the discourse, which is the one I'm going to share later. Good in the middle, suits those susceptible of being taught, since it is unequivocal in meaning and reasoned with cause and example. Good in the end because it inspires faith in the hearer. One example is the next sutta, also another of my favorite that I'm going to share with all of you next. Then the others, for the whole entire dispensation, it is good in the beginning because it begins with virtues. It's good in the middle because there is serenity and insight, samatha and vipassana. It's good in the end because it gives rise to path and fruit, and nibbana, the end of samsara. Okay? It's good in the beginning because the Buddha discovered and become Sammasambuddha. And the teaching is well regulated. That's the Dhamma, it's very coherent. And it is good in the end because it is entered upon by the Sangha. And then so many Sangha become enlightened as a result. So it is also good in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. Another way to understand it to be good in the beginning, middle, and the end is when we hear it, we are so full of joy, it suppresses our hindrances. And when we practice it, it gives rise to samadhi. The hindrances are suppressed and the mind is so bright and clear, and we can see the details, and our memory becomes really good. And then we have insights, deep understanding, so that's good in the middle. And then it gives rise to the fruit of enlightenment, and which is equanimous. Okay, so this is good in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. So because of all these I've just shared, it is well proclaimed. Okay. So one of my favorite suttas is the Rohitassa Sutta. So I shall share this as an example of a sutta that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. Rohitassa. So on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then, when the night had advanced, the young Deva Rohitassa, of stunning beauty, illuminating the entire Jeta's Grove, approached the Blessed One. He paid homage to the Blessed One, stood to one side, and said, "Is it possible, Bhante, by traveling to know, see, or reach the end of the world, where one is not born, does not grow old and die, does not pass away and get reborn?" And the Buddha replied, "I say, friend, that by traveling one cannot know, see, or reach that end of the world where one is not born, does not grow old and die, does not pass away and get reborn." And then Rohitassa said, "It is astounding and amazing, Bhante, how well this was stated by the Blessed One. I say, friend, that by traveling one cannot know, see, or reach that end of the world where one is not born, does not grow old and die, does not pass away and get reborn. In the past, Bhante, I was a seer named Rohitassa, one possessing psychic potency, able to travel through the sky. At the time, the wish arose in me, I will reach the end of the world by traveling. I traveled for 100 years without pausing except to eat and sleep. Yet I died along the way without having reached the end of the world. It is astounding and amazing, Bhante, how well this was stated by the Blessed One. I say, friend, that by traveling one cannot know, see, or reach the end of the world." And then the Buddha responded, "I say, friend, that by traveling one cannot know, see, or reach the end of the world, where one is not born, does not die, does not pass away, and get reborn. Yet I say that without having reached the end of the world, there is no making of an end of suffering. It is in this 6-foot-tall body endowed with perception and mind that I proclaim the world, the origin of the world, the cessation of the world, and the way leading to the cessation of the world." And the Buddha ended with a stanza. "The end of the world can never be reached by means of traveling across the world. Yet, without reaching the world's end, there is no release from suffering. Hence, the wise one, the world knower, who has reached the world's end and lived the spiritual life, having known the world's end at peace, does not desire this world or another." Okay, so this is the Rohitassa Sutta. Let us reflect on the meaning. It was a very interesting setting. The Buddha was at Anathapindika Jetavana Monastery at Savatthi. So sometimes there will be Deva coming to visit him. Like, I don't know whether you remember the Mangala Sutta is also in the same setting. So this time round is Rohitassa, a young Deva. He came and asked the Buddha about how to make an end of the world where there's no birth, no aging, no sickness, no dying, no rebirth. He has been traveling the world and he could not find the end. He was in the past a holy person with psychic powers. He could travel very fast across, it sounds like the galaxies, across different worlds. And yet he couldn't find the end. Like 𝐶 有 the monkey god, he could not jump out of the 5 aggregates, hills, mountains. And then he came to the Buddha. The Buddha says, you cannot make an end to the world by traveling. Then he was so glad because now he could indulge in his grief and frustration. There's actually no end of the world. That's it. It's all suffering. At least he doesn't have to travel already. He just accepts that it is just endless suffering. And the Buddha says, you cannot make an end of the world by just traveling, but I didn't say there is no end of the world. The world is but this 6-foot-long body. It is where the origin, the world, there is origin, the cessation, and the end is all here. There's no need to travel anywhere. And then, through that, Rohitassa was full of faith and inspired by the Buddha that I don't have to travel. And all this suffering, there is an end. And it is only found here. So, for us as Buddha's disciples, we associate it with other suttas that the Buddha taught, like the Satipatthana Sutta. By the breath, which is in this 6-foot-long body, we can practice deep concentration. And then with the deep concentration, we study the rest of the body to see them as impermanent, suffering, and non-self. And then we study the mind, the feeling, the mind. And then we understand the phenomenon of the mind in the various teachings of the Buddha. And they're all true. And then we can make an end of this world. Okay? So let us sit upright, close our eyes, reflecting on the Buddha's Dhamma that we have learned and practiced today. From the moment we came, we paid respect to the Buddha, recalled the quality of the Buddha. That is also the Dhamma. Paying respect to the Buddha is a practice of the Dhamma, well proclaimed by the Buddha. Taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. This was well proclaimed by the Buddha. Good in the beginning. And then when we took the 5 precepts, for the moment, we have commitment to a path and life of purity. This was also a teaching of the Buddha. We may not realize its value until one day we experience suffering and guilt when there are imperfections in our precepts. Having a flawless conduct is precious. And then we offered flowers, we offered incense, offered light, offered water, offered fruit. Full of meaning, and the practice is profound, for we align the mind, regardless of how imperfect the minds are. There is always hope of purity, of taking the precept again, of practicing generosity, of being like the incense, sweet like a perfume, pure like water. And then we practice meditation on the body, feeling the body with our raw mindfulness, observing the sensations of solidity, of weight, of texture, and the tone, the flowing and the tension, and the temperature, the warmth and the coldness, and the movement and the stiffness. For all these are the Buddha's description of earth, water, fire, and wind. So we stayed mindful, respectfully, detached and yet engaged, full of faith and inspiration, mindful, light and soft. That was a practice of samadhi on the body. And we remember the teachings around the refuges. When Mahanama asked the Buddha, what makes one a lay disciple? The Buddha said, the only qualification is we take refuge to the triple gem. And all of us have taken refuge in the triple gem, regardless of our past. We are the Buddha's disciple. We devote ourselves with all our flaws, our weaknesses, our imperfections, and we take refuge in the triple gem. And this is also a Dhamma, well proclaimed, deep in meaning and details, perfect. There's nothing to add, nothing to subtract. The teachings of the three refuges. And we remember the career of the Buddha. On the night of his enlightenment, he realized this enlightenment does not happen by chance. It's through aeons and aeons and life after life of perfections, of character, rooted in compassion. And he becomes the fully enlightened Arahant, Sammasambuddha, the knower of the world, teachers of gods and men. And today we learned about the practice of Dhammanussati. For all these are the well-proclaimed Dhamma. It's always about letting go, about purity, about perfections, bit by bit, starting from our behaviors of the speech and our body, creating good, harmless habits, and the mind settles easily with an object taught by the Buddha, such as the breath, the body. And when the mind is very, very peaceful, it is clear and bright, and we can examine what this body is made of, and the mind, and what are the causes and the conditions, how this body and mind is always in a dynamic flux, interacting, interfacing with everything, external and internal, real and imagined, perpetually, creating wholesome and unwholesome karma, driven by not knowing the Four Noble Truths. And we continue on, realizing this until one day we realize Nibbana, and the well-proclaimed Dhamma would take on a deeper and even more wonderful meaning of path and fruit, of Sanditiko, Akaliko, Ehipasiko, Opanayiko, Pachatam, Veritabo, Vinyuhiti. Even before then, the Dhamma is well proclaimed, deep in meaning and in details, utterly perfect and pure, good in the beginning, in the middle and the end, completely coherent, thoroughly. The profundity takes more than a whole life to fully appreciate. It works and it's valid, irregardless of where we are in this world or where we are in this universe. It's deep and profound, and yet well proclaimed by the Buddha or the Dhamma. Our meditation, our insights from today and from previous years, all the Dhamma we have learned, they are like miracles. We are so fortunate to partake in the well-proclaimed Dhamma of the Blessed One. This Dhamma is worthy of our refuge. We take refuge in the Dhamma throughout our life's trajectory, through our youth, through our middle age and our old age, in times of riches and health, and in times of deprivation and illness. The Dhamma is true, coherent and valid, and we shall take refuge in this well-proclaimed Dhamma in its entirety. In times of riches and health, we reflect on anicca, on humility, on karma, in times of deprivation and illness, you reflect of anicca, impermanence, of humility, of truth. Nothing special, just the body and mind interfacing through nature. And when all the aggregates fail, the eyes fail, the ears fail, and as we pass away, we still take refuge in the truth of the Dhamma. And may all this wholesome karma bear fruit in a rebirth where the Dhamma is taught and practiced. And this is also the Dhamma, the law of karma and the power of determination. By the truth of the Dhamma, may we realize Nibbana. And gently, at our own time, we may open our eyes.
Brothers and sisters, let's all say 3 sadhu to Dr. Ng for sharing today's talk on Dhammanussati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So I think we still have time for a few questions. Anyone have any question on today's talk? Like, how do you do Dhammanussati when you're at home? Any questions, anyone? Or has anyone here today is the first time trying on Dhammanussati, using Dhamma object in your meditation? Yeah, so how do you feel? Maybe I can. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Ng. Thank you for leading us this lesson. This is my first time doing Dhammanussati. And as a beginner, can you maybe break it down even simpler for beginner to follow? Because you give us many tips and I'm pretty confused which one to take upon.
Yeah. So actually, I asked my teacher yesterday, I called her. Then she says, oh, anything, like even your breath, just reflect that your breath is a Buddha's teachings. Anapanasati, mindfulness on breath. So if you're very used to mindfulness on breath, you practice mindfulness on breath, then you extricate yourself a little bit from the mindfulness of breath and just remember that this anapanasati that you so enjoy is a Dhamma. Then you feel it's so wonderful. Just say it's wonderful, it's wonderful, wonderful. Like that.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. Anyone else? Okay. Brother.
Dr. Ng, of course, I'm full of joy listening to your Dhamma. I just want to ask, just now we touched about the Paticca-samuppada. If you look, we all know that this all comes from avijja. When wrong view, wrong understanding, or we call it foolishness, then start with sankhara. Maybe, do you want to elaborate actually what happened when wrong view happening that generate the sankhara and the subsequent one?
Okay. So, actually, in our day-to-day life, we are swimming in wrong view and ignorance without ourselves even knowing. Like, for example, we say that, I need to buy this for my son or daughter. Then you go and buy something, then feed your son and daughter. Of course, feeding and all that, there's wholesome mind, there's generosity. The mind has, during the buying and the giving, there is no attachment. It's accepting. You're very smooth, you're very gentle, you're not resisting. And when you're giving, you can be very mindful because the mind is full of love, right? But before you buy, the idea of your son or your daughter as a real entity is a wrong view. Sorry to say, We are really just aggregates. It's just ear, nose, body, and then all the contact, and then just earth, water, fire, and wind, and then the mind here and there. And so, even when we do a lot of wholesome things, it's driven by a lot of unwholesome. It's driven by this primordial ignorance and wrong view that we have. Like even say I want to work. Why I want to work? I want to make money. I want to make money because I want to, so that I don't have to depend on others. And I don't have to experience the insecurity of poverty, blah, blah, blah. You can see even a simple phrase like this. Poverty is a concept. Insecurity is imagined. not depending on others, as if you never need to depend on others, or as if you really, really don't depend on others. So it's a lot of imaginations and perceptions intermingled together. And then we build on this, and then we have a lot of concepts and imagination. Then we form a lot of our ideology, our philosophy, our values, our principles. And then until such a time, suddenly our principles is rocked. Like suddenly we get like earth-shattering diagnosis, or happen to our family or our country. And then we start to feel, oh, my philosophy doesn't work. So all these are part and parcel of day-to-day ignorance and wrong views, which is the reason why we do the things we did. And some of the things we did are wholesome. Some of the things we do are unwholesome. Let's say, imagine when we pass away, say the whole life your philosophy is about caring for Singapore, or caring for human beings. Why is that? Maybe because you have an attachment to humans. You enjoy the kampong days when you were in Malaysia or in certain part of Singapore. And then before you die, your wholesome karma of cooking, of helping others ripen. You visualize yourself among Buddhist fellowships, okay? And then you get reborn as a human. Because you want to be humans. You may not even know it. You may not even say, I want to be humans. But you are attached to kampong spirit of people around, of warmth and kindness, of smiling faces. A lot of us have this attachment, I postulate, because of our birth experience, So cold suddenly. Then after that, brought to your mom's side, warmth. You start to need human warmth. And then anything that gives you a feeling that you're among humans, it makes you feel secure and safe. Anything that makes you feel isolated, you feel really scared. And our whole life is driven by this. It is just an example of people who likes people. There are people who likes, say, maybe beautiful things like flowers and butterflies. So maybe, if they enjoy, say, nature, maybe they will do wholesome deeds to save the earth, and maybe one day they become a tree deva, or a human, or a deva, or perhaps they see somebody destroying environment on the animals, and then they get angry. They may become an animal in the forest. I mean, it's very hard to say, okay? All of us have very, very mixed karma. And our views a lot of time is driven by a certain ideas that's not aligned with the Four Noble Truths. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. Maybe one last question. If no, I shall close today's talk. Any one more question? Last question of the day? Okay. I think once again, thank you, Dr. Ng, for sharing Dhammanussati. It has been a very fruitful day. Yeah, for myself also, this is the first time I've been using Dhamma as an object, because usually we were taught on metta or breath. This is the usual one, So this meditation Sunday series, I myself has been finding it very useful because a lot of this, I think Buddhanussati and Dhammanussati maybe in most of the meditation classes or even the secular one, you don't really see it's talking about all this. It's always about breath and all these things. So I think us as Buddhists, really thank you so much for Dr. Ng on this Meditation Sunday series. So do join again for next month. Thank
you.
Okay, so let us dedicate